Hello, this is a log for me. Today is the 26th of May 2022. This is the day after I have made my two classes libraries for logic and graphics. This is a little example implementation that I coded up to kind of demonstrate its functionality and how it works, in hopes that I can use it as a way to explain to people and show its purpose. So here I have a normal form. I'm importing my libraries. I have declared three things. These are most of the time going to be the minimum amount of objects. In order for a session to run, you would only need the session and some form of timer. At the moment, I do plan on integrating the iteration into the session itself, but that will be for a later date. And all graphical operations are going to be performed using the graphics base library, and the main component in this library is XWindow. This represents a on-screen element, which is actually an inherited panel, or this class inherits a panel. And I've got additional code there that allows me to manage the double buffering of graphics, drawing, etc. So you don't need to know too much about these yet. I'll go over it in the methods below. So here we have the load of my form. Nothing too significant. I'm initializing and calling my constructors. So I create my session. I set its bounds. This is important because it's not important directly at the moment, but it tells my session if anything exceeds these bounds, it needs to dispose of the object fully, which is obviously important. I then initialize the window. In the constructor, you can see I've passed in this form. I've done that because it actually needs to add itself to the form in order to be visible. I think that's important. But then we have my session, the first call of my session, add object. And I'm calling this class I've just made up for this demonstration. And also it's important that we set the bounds in this stage, so we could call center X, center Y without getting a null reference. So anyway, we've added an object to this session. I'm not going to go into detail what this process actually entails in this video. This is more of a demonstration. Then we just but we set up our timer and we start it. And this is kind of the core functionality of my session. This is why it was implemented and created, and why I think it will serve of use. So everything inside of this session is inherited. It inherits a class, or inherits a class that inherits at a base layer another class that's contained in my project base called XBase. This again isn't too significant, but anything in session will have a base class of XBase. This is because session functions based on the fact that each object inside of it will contain an update method. We actually, if I just hyperlink over here and you see this update, we do call an iteration, an update of each object. So each object inside this list will be updated. There are other processes that are performed, but I won't go into those. And then we have a draw method here. This, by the way, this is insignificant, so don't worry about this. But this draw method is to this class. It is not inside one of my libraries, but the functionality of it is, as you can see here, we declare a pointer to our Windows graphics object, which is important because we need to write to the graphics of the window. We clear it. We draw all the elements. This involves the same process as updating. We go through all the elements that are set to draw, and we draw them. And we end the drawing. In this method, we basically just render out all of our drawings to the screen. This is basically the implementation of double buffering using this. And here I just have my demonstrative class. We just have, so as you can see, we inherit XBase, as I said, and we've just got some attributes here that are going to be used for the circle for our constructor, and the first kind of foreign piece of code is this line here, me.set draw status equal true. This exists from Xbase. This is a method we have inherited, and this is important because there are two methods like this. We also have a me.set dispose status. Now, if I just explain what these two do, I mean, you can probably infer what they do, but me.set draw status, it will draw itself in the next iteration or the next time session.update is called. Now this is important because each object not only manages their own arithmetic and logic, but it also manages its own graphics, or it can manage its own graphics. This is why this is a Boolean switch. It is not always going to need to render itself. And we also have a set dispose status method, and this is also very important. This defines whether in the next iteration of session.update, if this object needs to be disposed of. Session will deal with that for us, which is handy. And here I just have the basic core methods that are necessary for session to do its job. As you can see, we're overriding a method in our inherited Xbase class, and there are two of these methods. Every class must override these two methods. One is update. As you can see, we're actually passing in the session here. That is so it has access to all the other objects in case it needs interactions with other things inside the session. And we can run our code externally here. The other overrides method is this draw. Now you can override this and not use it. It does not need to be called because we have a set draw status method. But here you can see we've just set how we want our circle to be drawn. Now the reason I believe that this is so effective is because of its range of usage and diverse object accountability. In this session list, as long as the class inherits Xbase, anything can be in here. Say maybe my objects, they shouldn't draw themselves. Instead, I could have an object inside session that renders stuff. I would have a render object. I think this is really neat because I have full control, but everything's automated. I could have calculators, as in classes that perform arithmetic, and they will manage themselves, and I can reference those classes as long as I have a pointer to their memory location. Then I can reference its data. Now, all of these examples, right now I'm drawing as well, we get a result like this. We have a fully movable screen with double buffering and rendering. And I'll just enlarge the screen for you to see a bit better. We have a full key press functionality, which works universally. As you can see, it's relatively smooth. I don't know if you can hear my key presses, but it's good. No lag and delay in rendering. We also have access to all key presses. And as you can see, there really is no limitations. This code that was used to create this really is minimal. And I believe that, sorry, excuse me for a moment. I believe that this is really convenient because each object can access itself and others behind the scenes. This, using my libraries, required very little code, apart from the timer, which I plan on removing and implementing into the session. The only thing that needs to be called for the session to run is this update. The user interface and the logical operations are completely separate. They do not need to interact with each other, and they don't ever directly interact with each other apart from the use of graphics objects. I also have some other classes which I'm quite proud of. At the moment, I've made this a public property of Form 1. I plan on changing this into something that can be globally read from, as key presses are going to be universal everywhere in the program. It doesn't need to be specific to a class. As you can see, I'm referencing my window, and I have a key manager class that's internal. I can reference is down, lots of nice little methods there. And yeah, this is just a little showcase to show the functionality and more ease of access of this approach. I will probably be refining this class over the course of hopefully a while, and I hope it serves me well, and I find a lot of places to implement it. This is probably going to get the most usage in scenarios like game jams where I am low on time limit. I have already completely managed my graphics and my logic. So yeah, this was a little summary, as this is the starting state of my program. It's a log for me to keep track of how I progress, any changes I make. This will probably be a long-term thing. So yeah, for reference, this video was made on the 26th of May 2022. And yeah, I hope this was informative and helpful, and it made sense. I've never really done a explanation tutorial video before, but I hope that it was sufficient. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, and thank you for watching. Bye.